again. Yes, we've missed everyone. We've missed you guys. We've
Hey
missed having the
everyone.
live chats. Hello. So, yes, we were taken out last week by that was last week by
Mm-hmm.
the full moon in Aries.
Yep.
And so here we are live and refreshed to some degree. It's
To
been a
some
really
degree.
busy time. How have you been, like, since?
I mean, it's been crazy. As you know, I had a wedding this weekend and it was my own. So the last couple weeks, if not months, has just been so busy. And with the wedding and everything, it's just been so like I feel like I haven't had a moment to breathe in forever. So now that that has occurred, I've been kind of finding myself again because my brain was so preoccupied on this thing that I haven't been able to like really reach into myself and be one with myself. So I've been going through like feeling kind of sick and
Mm,
even like just stress sick. So like I got my
mhm.
period really late and just like feeling really crappy. But along with feeling really crappy, I've also been feeling really, really, really connected to myself.
Yeah.
It's showing up in my dream space and in my day to day and like my appreciation. I mean, we were just talking before we got on about how like you were saying that like the autumn, like something's different, like something's
Hmm.
much stronger, more magical and vibrant. And I'm feeling that and just like it's been it's been a journey. How have
Yeah.
you been
Yeah.
feeling?
Yeah, very similar. There's been really high highs, really low lows. The other day, last week, and I mentioned we kind of did it. We did an intro, right, to our previous episode, which was an archive chat that we shared on Astral Projection, which will, of course, talk about that along with astral travel, along with the movie Insidious, which is our main focus for this episode. So that was our original chat for last week. And that full moon in Aries was so intense. And I knew that, right? But what was really interesting, I had some worries or not concerns, just like loosely about it. And I try not to really feel into the transits like that, like in a predictive way. But I was concerned because I knew it was an intense moon coming up, and I saw that the part of my chart that it was transiting through was the part of my life pertaining to physical health and wellness, and your mundane life, your routines, and yada yada yada. And so what had manifested was a really really intense migraine, GI issues. It was like not a fun time at all. And I had one live chat scheduled earlier that day, and I made it for that. And then I was just like, it just got progressively worse throughout the night. So, which is why we took that time to rest. And after the full moon, I would say into the weekend, it was a little tricky. Sunday was really intense for me, but it felt good. It was like I was spending the day like very quiet, which I have been kind of since then. But that day on Sunday, I was off and on just like releasing tears. And it wasn't really like I felt really sad about something. And, yeah, I felt happy in some ways when I was reflecting, but it was just felt like an energetic release. And now at this point, I feel really, really good. But yeah, it's all wavy. And yeah, but overall, I feel like we were saying, there's something different about this time of year. And even for the fact that we're coming up to Halloween or Samhain, and the veil is thinning, of course, and this is like the most witchiest time of the year, and I feel it, but then again, it feels different. It feels very like intimate, and I don't need to share anything. I'm not really talking about it as much. I'm just being with myself, my dreams, my daily practices, and stuff like that. So it's a really interesting time, but it feels good despite like those low moments.
Yeah, it's very introspective and very profound. And I don't know, it almost feels like when you're in that space of like being really in tune with yourself, time kind of shifts differently. if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Sunday for me, I didn't necessarily have the release of emotions, but that's beyond. I have a terrible time releasing any emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So that has nothing to do with that for me. But I did feel very in tune and very in touch and very like magical and just like quiet with myself and gentle with myself. I like it was like the day after the wedding and I just wanted to be alone because I need my
Yeah.
alone time so
Yeah.
badly. It's not even funny. So
Yeah.
I like went out of the house and I did things for myself. Like I don't think I've ever gone to a restaurant and just sat by myself before and ate. And I did that and it was like the best thing. Like it was just
Yeah.
wonderful. And
I
then I
love
just took
it.
my time with the rest of the day and kind of like just meandered and just was with myself. Which I do prefer to be in my own space alone rather than outside in public alone. Like nature is different, but like being at a restaurant or being at Barnes and Nobles, like I almost had to make myself accept that nobody else was around me to be alone with myself there, if that makes sense, because I couldn't be in my own space. But it was
Yeah.
really like I felt really magic, like just so intensely intertwined with everything.
Mm.
I don't know if you've been experiencing this, but I've been feeling a lot of like that veil being lowered. I'm feeling a lot of like connection with the other realms. Particularly like I was watching a movie in bed and I just looked over next to me and like felt like my grandmother was hanging out with me watching this horror movie while I was like sick in bed.
Mm.
And like I could hear her voice in my head and just like little things like that. Like I was scrolling through Instagram and this really niche song came on, and that's something my grandfather who passed away used to sing to me all the time. Just like, and it immediately brought like him singing in my head. It's just been a very connected period, and
Wow.
so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been almost what came to mind, the word was a reversal, where this is such a, I want to say a weird, but just like an offbeat season, because usually this is the time of year where I will even like I'll feel the presence, like different spirits or energies around, especially in my home. Like this is a time where they're usually like passing through. And so I don't know, maybe I did a really good job of having the space continually cleared and,
Cleansed,
quote
yeah.
unquote, like locked down, right? Cleansed, protected. So maybe I've been doing a better job at that. I mean, I've definitely been doing my spiritual practices more consistently than I have in the recent past. The only thing that I have been seeing is that we've been seeing what may be like a ghost cat, like just a shadow. And for those of you who have seen any of my videos or seen us chat live, you know that I have a black cat. And so at times I'll think it's her. It's like a shadow of a black cat. But I'm like there was one time I was coming out of the bedroom and I knew she was in my office in this room. But when I was coming out of the bedroom, like I just kind of glanced down the hallway and I saw from the side of my eye like a black shadow cat. And I was like, what? And then I had to check back in the office and I was like, she was where she was in the office. And so I was really confused.
Was she sleeping?
Yeah, she was sleeping.
What
So
if
she
that
could
was
be
like
traveling.
astral projection of herself throughout the
Right.
house and you
Because
just
it's,
like were able
yeah.
to see like in that realm?
It's always, yeah, and it's always like a black cat specifically, because I had a cat, a Siamese cat that transitioned last year. Yeah, last year, like pretty much almost a year ago, I think. And so it's not a Siamese cat, it's specifically a black cat, and I get it confused with Wednesday. So that might actually be the case. And that when we first moved here, that happened a lot. And we had a visitor over, uh, and she also had, it was a child, like, like 13, 14, but she had also noticed that too. And we went looking in the basement for, like, it was so funny. We were like, wait, is Wednesday down there? And so, yeah, it's just, and I've lived in other places that with like ghost animals, specifically cats. And so I know that I'm used to it. I know it wasn't actually her, just, so there's something there. So that's actually a really interesting point. And I wouldn't be surprised if she's like doing her little astral projection herself. So
Oh, that's so cool. I mean, I feel like it would creep me out off the bat. Like, I guess, like it does when I'm in my own home and I like sense something or I get the chills or I like see
yeah,
something out of the corner of my eye and I'm just kind of like, but like I don't get scared, but I feel like
yeah,
if it were, because I don't like I don't, if I see something out of my corner of my eye, it's like really, really in the peripheral. Like
yeah.
a lot of my connection with whatever that, space is feeling. So like I
Mm-hmm.
remember when my dog passed away, we had to put her down in May of last year. And for a couple weeks afterwards, I felt her presence. And I remember like I would be at random places and I would just like random places where my dog would have never been with me. And I would just all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden bend down and start like petting, like as if I'm petting her head. And I'm like, what the actual
Wow.
F am I doing right now? Like it was one of those things where like, am I okay? But like like there's no way to explain it. It just
Yeah.
it's the feeling that like of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think and this could be also, you really might be onto something about it being Wednesday, because I don't feel it. It's kind of just like, whoa, what was that? Like, was that her? It's almost like confusion. But when the place that I lived at previous to this place in Denver, it was an old house that they converted into apartments. It was like over 100 years old. I think it was like 125
Ooh.
years old or something like that.
Ooh.
And I could like I would feel a cat brushing up against, my leg, like they do, but there was no cat there. Like I had my cats, but they weren't around, like they were sleeping or whatever. And it happened often, especially the communal laundry was in the basement of the house. And it was like whenever I was down there too doing the laundry, I would feel it, and I would have those moments too. Or when I was in my own kitchen, it was so weird. So
It
those
is,
are kind
it's
of
so
freaky,
weird.
but
So this is different than what you were feeling there. This is like a different
yeah,
feeling than that. That is
yeah.
so
And it's
interesting.
more
And
so
it just was
I'm
like, oh my God,
seeing,
Wednesday
yeah.
is traveling.
It could be her, honestly, because I just see it. I just see the shadow, and I don't feel anything. It's seeing. So yeah.
I love this.
So
I love
yeah,
it
this
so much.
brings us to our topic, or part of the topic, of astral projection. So we would love to hear your thoughts and comments on the archived episode that we shared, that we also had the conversation with our friend Lewis. And we would like to know what your thoughts are. And just to go ahead and segue and start to transition our chat towards Insidious, before we get to Insidious, Alexis, I really want to hear about your experience with the astral projection meditation. So you want to share just a little bit about that, and then what kind of came through?
Yes, absolutely. And just to kind of repeat, if you're just listening to this for the first time, though, you know, we advise you probably listen to the astral projection ones first, but just in case you haven't, astral projection is an out of body experience. It's like when your energetic self disconnects from the physical. Um, so I have been wanting to do a guided meditation astral projection for quite some time now. I just haven't had the opportunity. I mean, even this one, I admittedly only did half of the exercise. Like I got my experience, but I could have gone further into it, but I just don't have 2, 3 hours at the
Yeah.
moment to like, and this was a 2 hour astral projection meditation. And I just don't have the time like right now. Eventually I will, and I'll take advantage. But so yesterday I decided, since we were going to talk about astral projection again, and in regards to the movie Insidious, I would try to invoke an experience for myself. And I did. So what I did was I blindfolded myself and laid down comfortably, and I had two crystals in my hands, and I got comfortable, started the meditation. And what she does is she walks you through every single sensation in your body from head to toe and gets you acquainted with it all. And then you kind of form it all together into like your energetic self. And it's a really interesting experience. Like you really feel like the vibration and the movement of everything. And then, she kind of advises you to disconnect, ground, of course, but disconnect from your physical body and like walk around your house. So I walked around my house and, she has you, it's very sensory. So she had you feeling the walls and like feeling the temperature and everything, very sensory, very like there. And then once you get acquainted with like that experience of your energetic self, you can kind of do what you want. And one of the things she mentioned was to like meet your higher self.
Mm.
And so I was like, you know what? I always want to know myself deeper on a deeper level. I always am trying to get messages from my higher self through my dreams, and I do often. I want to actually like exist within the realm of my higher self if possible. So I walked out of my window and was kind of just levitating. Like I could feel like that heat on my energetic self, and I could hear like the birds around me and just like everything going on. And then I said to myself that I'd like to meet my higher self. And in that moment, everything stopped and I was pulled up at like light speed, like in a speed I can't put into words. And when I stopped, I was in just this space of all of everything and nothingness. And it was like a blanket of all of the universes and galaxies and everything. And it was moving in this like almost like wave like pattern, very
Mm-hmm.
abstract wave like pattern. And it was completely silent. And I almost felt nothing, just awe. And it ended up forming into like a version of like a very, very silhouette version of myself from like the waist up. So where I'm standing, it was almost like I was a mountain of nothingness. And they introduced themselves as we and me, and like explained how we were everything and nothing all at once, like just us together, us as one, us individually, like everything together all at once, basically. And I asked for a message, and the higher self of what I perceived as my higher self was basically just repeating love, just love. Like that's the base root of like existence, is just love. And it just kept saying it over and over again. And then I felt a warm blanket and this huge like creature that, was my higher self, this like blanket of everything and nothing, just moving, kind of shape shifting stuff, kind of wrapped itself around me. And I felt this warmth of like that message in my body and in my energetic body. And in that moment, I was levitating outside of the window again, feeling the heat, hearing the birds. And I went back in through the window, like just walked through it and went back into my physical self, and then kind of like ended it there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my experience. And I have to say it was extraordinarily profound. And I haven't stopped picturing this thing in my head over and over and over because it was just so beautiful. Like I can't put into words. I might actually attempt to do a painting of it because it was just so beautiful. But it was, I mean, I've never had an experience quite like that before.
So when you said what you're visualizing, was it your higher self, like what you saw, or was it, when you're saying you're thinking back to it, or is just like what is it? It's probably hard to actually put into word. Like you're visualizing something, but it can't really be described with words, so to speak. Like
Yeah, like I
what?
did my best to explain it. You can kind of like it almost like a
Yeah.
blanket of everything, just uh, everything,
Like so
everything.
it wasn't a person.
No, no.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It was
It
just
was
like
just
energy.
movement that shape shifted a little bit.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Like I could feel that what I it definitely took me to just in my visualization, I knew as soon as you were saying like the way your hand was moving, it definitely like I said wave, right, in my head. And I was thinking about like the fabric of space
Yes,
and like just being kind of transformed and manipulated by matter, by thought, by just like a presence. And
exactly.
then when you said, then I started to like really what came in after that was like maybe like a tapestry of just like all of these different energies. And I've heard people describe like their different experiences or life or just whatever it is that we're creating. It's all like kind of a tapestry. Like it's not uniform, it's not it's yeah, you can't really put it into words, but I absolutely can feel what you are sharing, and I think that's incredible. I can't believe you didn't say anything. You
I
like held
know it
on.
was so hard not to, I was like, I want to talk to you about it so bad, but I wanted to save it for this so bad
that's
too.
that's incredible. Yeah, so do you
It
have like
was
a link
crazy.
of the meditation? Is it like something that's on the app
Yes,
or
absolutely. And I'll send that to you after the chat so we can put it up in the comments, or not the comments, the caption.
yeah,
Because I
cool.
have it saved on my phone because I want to do it again, and I want to do it to the fullest extent.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I haven't had the time to devote myself to how much time you really need to spend to really go deeper and deeper and deeper. Like I feel like I only touched the
Yeah.
surface.
But that's good. I mean, that's a lot to really reflect on and sit with and feel. I mean, especially if you really want to take it in and integrate that, like I think that was perfect. Um, because sometimes it could just you can get overwhelmed with so much information or, you know, so much going on that some of it can get lost or you can miss like the nuances within things. And so I think for your first experience with the meditation that was so perfect. I mean, how many people can say that they've met their higher self or like that just that's a really unique and powerful experience for you. And so I think it makes so much sense why you were like or you just felt intuitively like okay I'm good for now, I feel complete with this. And then there's that time of integration. So I just want to quickly ask you, do you feel like on the other side of that, how do you feel like have you felt any change or anything, or is it like still, you're still integrating it and processing it? So where are you at? I know this just happened yesterday, so
I'm
we're going to
definitely
have to
still
come back to it
integrating and
again.
processing for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
like even so I got up from this experience and I immediately came down and started writing it because I was like, I don't want to forget anything about this experience. And I even wrote, like, I still kind of feel disconnected from myself. Like, I still, because I cut it off short. So I almost feel like I was just kind of like, if this is my energetic body and this is my physical body, I kind of just felt like this. And it was definitely profound. And I think it's something that I'm going to be thinking about for a while, like a while. And I really do want to create a painting of what I
That's going to be
experienced because I
amazing.
think it'll help me with that integration even more.
Yeah, absolutely. And so last question. Did you feel like any, like when that your energetic body was separating from the physical body, did you like feel anything, hear anything? Because, you know, some people share that they like heard buzzing. Like for me, I heard buzzing. At
Oh,
times I
I
felt really
definitely heard
warm.
buzzing. I
Okay.
definitely heard that. And, you know, I feel like it was because you could feel the vibration and the movement of your entire like being, almost like I could hear that. Like I could hear myself
Hmm.
vibrating. Like that's what the buzzing to
Yeah.
me felt like. I could hear and feel myself
Yeah.
in this like just pure energy.
And it didn't like freak you out or scare you or anything. Okay.
No, I feel like because I lucid dream and probably astral travel within my dreams a lot, it takes a lot to scare me with that kind of stuff.
Hmm. Nice. So speaking of scary, and thank you so much, Alexis, for sharing that.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to try it out too. Although I'm like, why do I feel like some fear around it? That's
Yes,
interesting.
please.
But I think we should do an episode
Well, you
and
haven't.
like based on this, and we both experiment with it, and then we come back and share. I think that'll be really fun. So we can share more on
I
it.
agree, 100%. I think we should absolutely do that. Yep.
All right. So speaking of scary things, fear, oh my goodness, Insidious, we're going to transition into the dreams and media aspect of this. We're going to talk about Insidious and just the nature of dreams and astral travel, astral projection in reference to this movie and our thoughts. And yeah, so do you want to share what about the movie Insidious in case, people haven't watched it at all?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to say that this is a spoiler alert. So if you have not seen
Yes.
the movie and you do not want to miss anything, pause here, go and watch it, and then come back.
Mm-hmm.
But
Thank
okay.
you.
So Insidious is one of my favorite movies. I thought it was such a cool concept, and it really, even though it's more of the scarier aspect, like the paranormal in a more evil way, which, not that I don't particularly believe in that aspect. I just have not had that experience, so it doesn't necessarily relate to me, but it does pack in a lot of information that's very interesting and gives you an idea of kind of like how this works and what you're experiencing. And even with dreaming, there's so many questions around, like, well, where do you go? Are you like, can you go through different, time lines? Can you go to different planes of existence? Where are you going? There's that question. So when it comes to this is like one aspect of where you could go. And I love it. Like I said, it's a great movie. And yeah.
Yeah, so this movie, for those of you who haven't seen it, it is about a family who is basically they look to prevent evil spirits from trapping their comatose child in the realm called the further. And so initially, if you haven't seen it, if you don't mind the spoiler, the child they moved into a new home, an old home. It looks super creepy, and there are some creepy things going on, sort of like poltergeist energy. And the kid is in the attic exploring, and there's a situation. There's a quote unquote accident, appearingly, and so they thought that the kid like hurt himself, like fell on his head, because that night when he went to bed after he fell in the attic, that night he went to bed, and then the next morning he didn't wake up. Like he was essentially what would be seen to be in a coma. And his father tried to wake him up. They took him to the doctor, and nothing was really wrong neurologically. Like there was no brain trauma or anything like that. So they were kind of at a loss. They were doing tests and everything. And so they sent the child home to live at home, and the mother was nursing him and whatnot. And so sooner they found out, or later in the movie, as the movie progressed, they found out that through a, what would you call her? Like
I
a
would say she's like a
spiritual,
medium. I would
yeah,
say she's like
medium, right?
along the
Yeah.
lines of like a channeler or medium.
Yeah, definitely a medium. And she came into the space to check it out because they actually moved to another home, and she came to the space after they realized that it doesn't matter if you move, which that's something I want to touch on too. That once she was there, she got a full sense and reading on what was in the space. And essentially, she told the parents that the child is an avid, very good astral traveler. Like he astral projects at night and he will travel around. And he ended up in a place where essentially he was too far gone. Like he was kind of trapped in a space, and his spirit body being separated from his physical body for that long period of time kind of opened the space to other spirits that were wanting to take over his body, basically. And there was one spirit in particular that was basically a demon that was really like wanted to use his body for malevolent, actions. And so, of course, you can imagine what was happening in that place. And so I guess we can just talk about, their perspective on, astral projection, astral travel, what was experienced. Does it seem, as far as our experience in our studies, does that seem like that could actually happen? And just our thoughts in general. So yeah, do you want to start it out or?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you.
Okay.
So right off the bat, I just want to explain what the further is in this movie. So the further is a world beyond our own, yet it's all around you. So kind of like what I was kind of what I was explaining before, where it felt like my energy body and my physical body were kind of like this. That's kind of how this
Or
world was.
explain for those listening to the
Oh, I'm
episode,
sorry.
like,
I
no,
was
you're good.
using both of my hands to represent one hand being my physical body and the other hand being my energetic body, and kind of like interweaving my fingers and pulling back. So it's almost like
Yeah.
this incomplete fusion where you're just kind of going back and waving back and forth between, you know, being connected fully and being separated. And that's kind of what this further is. It's integrated with our world, but it's a different world. It's a different plane. And it is a dark realm filled with the tortured souls of our existence. And it's not meant for the living. And I think it's really interesting the way that they talked about how it was tortured souls of our existence. Because if you remember in the original Beetlejuice, while they're walking down the hallway in the like afterlife type of area, they pull up a door and it's a bunch of like tortured
Mm,
souls, and they kind of
mm-hmm.
talk about how that's where all the tortured souls go, and that immediately reminded me of that. But
Interesting.
basically these souls, some of them just long to be alive again, like another chance to live, where other aspects of this realm are demons who, like you said, are malicious and want to use that container to do harm. So I really find that that is a very interesting way to see it. And I throughout the movie you kind of see how the that connection waves. So when he falls and he's in that coma, the mother, who I interpret as being a mother already, makes you a little more sensitive in movies. And I feel like that's a common thing. You become a mother, it just kind of opens your world up a little more. And with her being that, she's more sensitive to that, to the entities of that in between space. So she's having these things happen to her in her space that her husband's not picking up on, but the kids are picking up on. So I find that really, really interesting too, especially because she's not an astral projector in the movie. She doesn't know what this is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I, oh my God, I'm sorry, I lost
Yeah,
my
so
train of
I
thought for a
can
second.
add, yeah, I can add on that part too, because that was really interesting as far as the mother's she was definitely, what I jotted down watching this is that she's really intuitive,
Yes.
which makes sense. She could see like what she started to see what was going on, right? And she's there all the time.
Yes.
And I felt like that was true because when you're, like you're saying, just in that maternal energy, like just being a mother and going through that experience, you have to, it automatically turns on your intuition or your, for lack of a better word, psychic abilities in a sense. Because when you think about when children are very young, before like they can even speak, you have to learn how to read energy, read body language, get a
Yep.
sense of like what's going on without someone physically telling you. And then also being able to anticipate certain situations. And things are so routine when you're a mother to a little one that you can pick up what's like when something's off, you pick that up. So I definitely resonated with that. And I will say that watching this movie right away triggered my, just after having a kid, because I used to watch horror movies like since I was a kid. And I've seen like, I thought I saw Insidious, but I don't think I actually saw this one. But I've seen like pretty much every horror movie. I'm like, yes, I'm going to see it, unless it was like really campy and cheesy and just like dumb. And so, but it was interesting when I had my daughter, it was like I couldn't watch it. Like I literally watched this while she was in the morning while she was at school. Because I was like, I can't watch it while she's in the house, which makes sense if I watched it at night when she was sleeping. And then all of, yeah. So, anyways, with that to say, it definitely started hitting some like pain points in reference to being a parent and the whole anxiety even around your child sleeping. So, that was really interesting. So I definitely wanted to just kind of point that out.
If I can add this too, I almost feel like back to the mothers, and this is just a quick little thing, but I was thinking about it, like mothers really are the bridge from nothingness to creation. So I feel like that alone, like we don't really know what nothingness is. We don't know what that is. So like it is
Yeah.
bringing the two realms together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So something else that stood out to me as well with this movie, and this, I guess it's not as far as like a dream thing, but just like a mystical type experience, is that it also really brought up a time that I actually went through a possession experience where I was possessed, or I was in a space that was like very heavily occupied by malevolent energy. And it was really interesting to witness this because I was reflecting on that time. So that hit another pain point where I was like, ooh, like there's something still there. But I remember, just to keep it short, I was living in an apartment. I was I was living there with my husband, but we had separated, got a divorce. He moved out. So when we moved there, the place was already really weird. And we moved into that apartment from another apartment under someone that was like doing a bunch of drugs and whatnot. And so it was really sketchy. So I was like, I can't live under this person, because energetically I was already feeling whatever he was feeling.
Oh, no
And I
doubt.
started having like really, I couldn't sleep. So there was only one part apartment available, and it had been vacant for a while. It had an infestation of roaches, but they're like, it's being treated. And literally when I walked into this apartment, I was like, I feel like someone died here. Like in my mind, I was like, did someone die here? And I don't just, that just doesn't happen. And, but I didn't care because I didn't want to live under the person. So I was like, it's fine, like whatever. And so on top of that, once we moved in, like my ex and I were already on the rocks. So there was like a lot of arguing and just like really heavy energy in the space. So he finally moves out. And fast forwarding through time, like I was getting it heavily back into like witchcraft and doing things and not really protecting my energy field. And I was like calling in, like casting circles, calling in love and light, not being very specific.
Yep.
And 2 weeks after we moved in, like, so 2 weeks after we moved into the new apartment that I'm talking about, the guy that was living above me OD'd and died in his apartment, right? So then there was this weird energy. There was a lot of stuff going on. So, anyways, long story short, I'm there alone, and I started seeing things. I started to see like this dark, shadowy figure leaning into my bedroom, which was like, I just blocked everything out.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I had a friend over and we were like I was reading her cards and we were in my bedroom, but we had like the candles, like it was dark, we had the music, and it was just like we were really in the vibe. And she was like, my back was towards my door and she was facing the door. And she was like, oh my God, I just saw, like, she saw what I saw, the figure leaning into the bed. And I'm getting chills still.
I feel
And I'm getting, I got goosebumps all over my body. And so, anyways, like the fact that someone else saw it, like it confirmed that,
yeah,
okay, something's
validated your
going on.
experiences.
So, yeah, so we freaked out. I was like, we got to get out of here. So we left and we went to her place and I stayed at her house for 3 days, but I had to go back home because she was going out of the country. Can't remember where she was
Mm-hmm.
going, but the Philippines, that's where she's from. And so I went back, and like when I went back, everything was turned up, right? So these things feed off of your fear.
Wow.
And so I started seeing, not only was I seeing that thing, I was seeing things come through my shadowy figures coming through my bedroom window. I was also in my dream space. I would like I was having dream experiences where I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or if I was awake, because it was like I was waking up in my space. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't doing like any of the dream work or anything like that. So I wasn't deciphering of like, oh, I'm astral traveling, I'm lucid dreaming, whatever. And I remember there was a teapot going off and there was like a kid crying under my bed. It was crazy. And I would wake up often like in a puddle of sweat. It was so bad. I don't think I've ever even told you about this, Alexis.
Mm-hmm.
But so, anyways, and this happened like within 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. And I had a friend that came over, and he's like a seasoned witch. He's like in his 50s and whatnot. And luckily, what saved me at this time was that I was doing green tar practice. Like I just got into it. So I was doing that like at my apartment a couple times a week. And I was also going to a temple and doing it. So I had like a protective shield nonetheless. So he came over and he got a sense on my place and told me that whatever was there didn't like what I was doing. And so he was like, yeah. And I was smudging and doing the whole clearing in my apartment. I went from doing that like once a week to 2 or 3 times a week, and that didn't work. So it's like sometimes it doesn't, like
No,
what
it
you're working with,
sometimes
it
it
didn't
does
work.
not work.
And I was getting
Especially if
visited
it's really strong because of like it seemed like it was really feeding off of fear, but also
the fear,
vulnerability. Like,
yeah, the
when you go
fear, the
through an
vulnerability.
intense like breakup with a relationship, it leaves you wounded and open. And it
Yeah,
was like feeding off of that
it was
vulnerability,
an
that
attachment,
wound.
literally an
Yes.
attachment to that fragmented part within me. And yeah, and so my friend was like, like basically it was like I had to move, right? So I moved and I did feel a bit better, but it took me like 6 months minimum to like really start to feel normal. And this is why, and it was because I was doing the green tar practice like pretty much like every other day, and I was doing all of my spiritual stuff. But this is like when they moved, like literally, when she was like, we just got to leave out of this house. I was literally sitting there watching them. I was like, doesn't matter if you move. It's an attachment. It's there, and there's like so much fear and connection that
Yeah.
it's a part of you. And that's what they said. The lady said in
Yeah.
the medium that came there, she said that it's not the place that's haunted, it's your son that's haunted, right? It's like there's an open element there. And so that really hit a strong like pain. I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, that just brought me back there. And I was like, damn. So that's really real. Doesn't matter if you move, like you got to do the work to clear it. You have to like
Yeah.
raise
Absolutely.
vibration.
No.
That's the real way to get rid of those energies, is like, yeah, it definitely helps to move, but then you also have to do the work on yourself to really like clear and raise your vibration so they can't there's nothing for them to stick to. And it's really hard when you're in fear and you're like being, there's poltergeist experiences happening, or your dream space is like torturous, right? You don't even want to go to sleep.
Yeah, and I remember like when I didn't have these experiences as an adult, but I had them as a little kid where like I was seeing a lot of things and I felt a lot of fear, but I don't believe the things that were there were actually like trying to be malicious. I think that I didn't understand what it was, and it was scaring me, just the existence of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you build up like the protection and the walls for yourself when you go through it for so long, and it takes forever to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. And this is why it's really good to really have a good bedtime routine or regimen, and just like your bed space, your bedroom space in general, to have like to cleanse that often, and to, integrate, just like, or incorporate crystals and things of that nature that really feel good, like make it like a really high vibe place for yourself, and something that feels good and feels safe. That will
Absolutely.
definitely have a big impact on your dream space and what you experience.
Yeah, and the
And
protection too. Like you can do anything that you feel comfortable with for your own protection. You can make like a room spray. You can use any kind of like burnable incense, or
mm-hmm,
if in your culture, sage or Palo Santo or whatever,
mm-hmm. Like
whatever,
oil diffusers too. Yeah.
yes. Even like I years ago found a beautiful three bell, like brass three bell, like witch's bell. And if I just feel like things are a little
Mm-hmm,
too open, like I'll just kind of walk around my house and ring the bell a little bit. It's like
mm-hmm,
there are so many different ways that you can include protection, and it doesn't have to be, I would love to do a ritual. I don't have the
mm-hmm.
space right now to do a ritual of protection, but just the intention of protection can do a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. And mantras can help with that too. Like if you just have like a
Yes.
mantra or anything that you say when you
Yep.
sleep, that's really good. So another thing that was I really liked in this movie was the grandmother. So the grandmother was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And she came in to help once they moved to the new house. She came to help, and she was very supportive of the wife and what was going on, because the husband, the dad, he was the way he was coping with it was like he was distant, like he was spending a lot of time at work, but he did support his wife, and he's like, okay, we're gonna move, but he was still not
He
like
was
he was kind of
skeptical.
on, yeah, he was skeptical. And so the grandmother was supportive, and she shared that she like what the mom was seeing and what was going on was actually like accurate. And the way in which she was very clear about that was she had traveled to the home through her dreams. And I don't even
Mm-hmm.
think it was intentionally, it kind of just happened. And she saw what was going on. She saw the figure, and she asked, some very
Yep.
important dream questions like, what's your intention? What do you want? And
Yes.
I was like, yeah, she's
It
in the
was
dream
such a
space.
cool
She
movie. I
traveled, she
love
asked the
this movie.
questions, and she got a response. They,
Yep.
the figure, the demon was like, I want Dalton, which is the son, the
I
child, the
want this
body,
empty
right?
vessel.
Right. And I was like, yes, that was on point. I've had not that specific experience, but I've had, experiences where, like, especially when we were like really talking about lucid dreams, when we were facilitating the circle, I was like, okay, I had made intentions for when I lucid dreamt. And then when I was actually in the lucid in the dream, I recalled my questions, my intentions, and I was able to like do it, and it was just so successful and fulfilling. So that was a perfect example of how the dream space and being aware in the dream space can help you in your waking life, right? That was, I think they did a really good job with that.
They did. They did such a good job with that. And two, when it comes to the asking questions within your lucid dream state or your astral travel state, um, if you've been dreaming a lot, like for your entire life, kind of like used to it, like I know you are, like we're both kind of focusing on our dream spaces more intentionally within the last several years, but we both have dreamed for our entire life.
Yeah.
And there are aspects of that where like you don't even need to think of the question before you go to sleep. It just comes up during your experience when you're in the
Yeah.
dream or when you're
Yeah.
traveling. it's just they did such a good job. It was such a cool aspect to it. I do wish that she would have said something just a little bit sooner. Like I feel like she held off
Yeah.
on saying something for a little bit, and I'm like, just say it.
Yeah.
You're right here,
Right.
right now. Just
Yeah.
say it.
Yeah.
But no, it was fantastic, and I just, it's so interesting. And speaking of which, it is a genetic ability. So, like
Mhm.
within this movie space, it seems to be a genetic ability. So the father was a very, very strong astral projector, like his son. And he had a similar thing occurring where there was a different demonic entity that was chasing after that empty vessel. And for them to like get rid of this, they actually had to basically hypnotize him into forgetting that he even had the ability so he wouldn't do it again. Like it was like the only way for him to avoid his basically his body being stolen while he astral projects is to
Mm-hmm.
just not astral project. And for his
Yeah.
mother to astral project to see, like within the dream, to see Dalton and what's going on with that aspect and how that genetic, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it makes me think too, like
Yeah.
how deep can that hypnotization go where like you literally stop doing something in your sleep that you've been doing for,
Yeah. That's yeah. So you
forever.
can see how it's our consciousness, our psyche is all like, the unconscious and the
Unconscious, yeah.
aspects are definitely like linked, how it's wired. And yeah, I think what was one of the things I wanted to ask you is that do you think that there's a possibility to travel too far where you can't come back? Like that was something that they presented in the movie that, you can travel so far that your spirit or your soul gets lost and you're unable to get back to your physical body.
I mean, I think that really any of this is possible. I can't say that I have had the experience of being far from my body. Like even in
Yeah.
this instance, like I don't really know how far is. When I did
Yeah.
my astral projection meditation, I don't know where it was, like if it was on a different plane or like just further, like far, far away. But in with
That's a good
these
point.
with these aspects, I just don't think anything's impossible. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's experience based.
Mm-hmm.
I really do feel like it's experience based.
Yeah, I think my issue or one of the things I was kind of like questioning a bit was when the father, so at a point in the movie, the father astral projected to find his son and to bring him back to his body. And so he went into the further and he found his son and his son was like chained there. And that was like that was a bit that felt like a bit like movie type thing because I'm like, well, how
Yeah.
is your but then again, it's like we don't know. Like, who's to say? You never know what experience can actually happen. And guess what? I don't want to know that. No,
No.
thank you. Like,
Well, it's
but
also
that was
this
something I
too,
thought
like
about.
there is this aspect to the movie that's very paranormal on a movie
Mm-hmm.
level.
Mm-hmm.
And they really expand and stretch. Not that it's
Yeah.
impossible, but they really stretch the
Mm-hmm.
imagination when it comes
Yeah.
to the horror aspect. And in this case, he didn't really travel too far away. He was captured.
Mm-hmm.
Like he wasn't lost, he was stuck
Yeah. Yeah. He was stuck.
and it was out
Yeah.
of his control. And
Yeah.
that's something where like I don't know how that personally, I don't know how that would work. But again, I don't have like
Yeah.
I've never had any experiences with malicious activity.
Yeah. Well, you're very fortunate. Because I was thinking about that too, like just now, of the experiences I have and it's usually when I'm in a space that there's other things going on. And it like this is kind of the time of the year that can happen too, like at least here. Um, I'm knocking on wood on my desk. But like I will like wake up where it's like I think I'm waking up. I'm like awake in my bed, but I know I'm in the in between and there's something there. And I'm either, this is what I call my spiritual battles, where usually I'm yelling green Tara's mantra at whatever is in that space. And I started having that experience specifically when I wasn't in that place, that apartment anymore, but it was like like shortly after that. And I was at an ex-boyfriend's place, and he had got this, I think I shared this on another chat before, but like he had got this wooden Buddha from a secondhand shop, and I didn't know, and it was just sitting on his dresser, and I hadn't noticed it, and he had it for like a while. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, that thing, there's an attachment there. And that was like, I was getting sleep paralysis, I was waking up like in the middle of the night, and I was just like facing the corner of his bedroom wall. I remember like where the bed was, and I was just like yelling like Tara's mantra, like in an attacking, like aggressive way. And that happens every so often, and I know usually that there's something in the space, especially if it happens like here in this home, because I it's so cleansed and locked down, and I'm like, something's here that's not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
So that, like, I have had experiences with, like, you could say malevolent energies like in the in between.
Mm-hmm.
um but as far as like my astral projection travels, haven't felt like, they felt kind of weird, but I haven't felt like, I haven't gone far because they haven't really last long. And I've heard of, doing readings, like I've or just in my studies, I've heard and read that, people astral project all the time and travel and whatnot. And it's like you always come back. There's no fear. There's nothing like, they're trying to attack you. It'd be interesting to like research people who have had like comas or anything, if like what their experiences was like. But I feel a lot of the times what I have heard of like people that have had comas or anything like that, like it's been very positive things like where they are. So again, I'm not interested in finding out, but I just thought it was really interesting of this, like going too far and then also like being trapped in some sort of way. I felt like always heard the contrary, as far as like, you're always coming back to your body. And as soon as you feel that fear, you wake up. And that has been my experience. Like you
It's
lose
really,
that.
sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it.
Okay, I just wanted to say, I was thinking about this and it has my mind kind of going, there's so many questions because there's so much that's unknown. And something I've been thinking about recently is that, if you can travel in your sleep, like dream realm, like you can go different planes of existence, universes, I almost said universities, universes, timelines. If these things are possible, then how often do you wake up in your own original, like, universe, your own original timeline?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
like, to the extent where like little things are off, but nothing that would indicate that you're somewhere else.
Very true.
And in regards to that, it's almost like maybe the fear of different experience. Everybody's life is completely different. Your
Mm-hmm.
reality is your reality, and that's it. Nobody else's reality is your reality. Like, you're the only person who is experiencing what you experience. And there's an
Mm-hmm.
aspect of that too, where like if certain things are incorporated into your, maybe, the way you were raised or beliefs, you're open to different things because of it. So like one of the things
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
about is there's a lot of people who have religious trauma, and I personally don't have religious trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I experienced a lot of unknowns as a child that made me fear a lot, but it almost like put up a protection so I didn't let anything in. And
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like maybe different ways that your upbringing affects you opens your reality to different experiences than other people because of it. So like these experiences where there are malicious entities, it might be something where it is you are learning about it, so it's now a part of your reality. I don't know
Yeah.
if I'm making sense. It's I'm trying to, like, it's like, how often can you shift your existence where you are
Hmm.
in this place and time, and like what influences change your existence?
Yeah.
I don't
Excuse
know if
me.
that's making any sense.
No, it makes complete sense. And I really love what you're saying because I think the answer to that is yes. If it was a yes or no question, I think what you're saying is valid because just reflecting on my own experiences where, when you like I feel just changing existences or, shifting just subtly within like timelines or experiences absolutely happens when you are doing a lot of that internal work, when you are like peeling back the layers of yourself, or you go through any like spiritual experiences or journeys and just kind of, yeah, certain things are revealed. And naturally, that's going to alter your perception, and your perception changing changes your reality, right? Changes like the way if you change the way you see things, the things you see are changing. If that,
Yeah.
I know I butchered that quote, but
No, 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 no.
that's what I got from that. Okay, lights are doing weird things out my window. But I was like, I just got distracted. But yeah, no, that definitely makes a lot of sense, especially with, I mean, I can speak to my own journey before really paying attention to my dreams. I've always had crazy dreams. I've always really loved scaring myself. And I know as a young child, I can't really remember like specific dreams, but I remember having like nightmares or just any kind of like random dreams. And then as I got a bit older and got more spiritual, I was definitely more aware of them. And but there was like this weird like negative, not necessarily negative, but scary like relationship to my dream space. A lot of that had to do with what I experienced when my grandmother was transitioning when I lived with her. And there was like, when I think back to it, there was a lot of like in between like spaces there where I can recall certain things. And I don't know if I was asleep or awake. And even walking like around her house, which her house that I was living in as she was like pretty much in that space of transitioning, um, shows up in my dreams a lot now. And it didn't take until I was like like I started to heal from my grandmother, from that experience with my grandmother, that I was able to really like do the dream work, which I feel that has shifted my existence and where I am in my own timeline, because like my dream space or my unconscious mind is really like intertwined in a way that's very like I'm very aware of with like my conscious mind. So yes, that made complete sense. And yeah,
I'm so glad you
I affirm
understood what I
that.
was saying, because I felt like I was butchering my explanation. I was like,
Oh, it was
I
very
can think
clear.
about it and it makes sense in my head, like the possibilities, the questions, the everything. And then when I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, does is this even, are these even words going together well? Like it,
Yeah, no, it's
but like
perfect.
being a lucid dreamer and an avid one for a very long time, you already have like your foot in a different world your entire life. And I feel like with my dream space being a form of escape for me, I
Mm-hmm.
had almost my own protection in place without knowing it. And like
Mm-hmm.
the things that, again, the things that scared me, I don't think were like malicious. I just think I didn't understand how
Understand.
to
Yeah.
interpret it.
Yeah. And
Because, like,
that's
I
a
mean, I
really
remember, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just say I remember being like a little kid and like laying in my parents' bed and looking up, and they had like a princess like bed. So it was like metal rods with the rods at the top, and you could hang curtains from
Mm-hmm.
it. But I remember there were no curtains on it at the time. And I was just looking up at it. My parents were asleep, and I saw this like ring of sparkle and these small little creatures, and they were kind of just like moving around and like spinning around that square shape of the bed, and like not understanding what I was seeing or experiencing. Or like I remember going outside and like seeing I swore, like I looked down at the blade of grass that I would, because I was always outside by myself, and I saw this creature that was like a mix between a frog and a koala, and I knew, I was like, this is really interesting. I've never seen this before, and
Mm-hmm.
I went and to get something to put it in, and I never ever saw anything like that again. Or like
Wow.
things kind of coming around the stairs, and like not seeing it with my eyes, but seeing it with my mind's eye, and like feeling
Mm-hmm.
the energy. Like nothing was attacking, nothing was
Yeah.
harmful, but I didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. Yeah, so yeah, we're gonna wrap this up here in a minute. This has
Yes.
really been a good conversation. I did want to ask, in reference to, because we were talking about astral projection, but also astral travel, and you are a very strong lucid dreamer, and you've been many places. You've traveled a lot in your dreams. And so I'm sure you've come across, I would say, I guess, like malevolent or negative energies, or how would you, have you ever came across any kind of energy or any kind of space or weird, scary places, such as, maybe what was presented in this movie or just anything kind of close to that? Have you experienced that, like through lucid
I've
dreams
had
and
very
astral travel?
scary experiences for sure. I've felt the fear and the, but there's something about, I think that I just feel like I'm at a place where I can protect myself and have
Mm-hmm.
for a very, very long time, that it doesn't come across as that type of fear, the same type of fear. Because like I feel it, but then it it unravels itself. You
Like
know,
it doesn't
even
have power over you, basically. Like
correct,
you feel,
correct.
yeah,
Like I very, very, very rarely have nightmares because I am in mostly control. And when I do have a nightmare, it's because I'm surprised. Like not just afraid, but the surprise of it,
mm-hmm.
kind of takes me up. Like I'm not experienced, like I'll be fully lucid. And then I had that experience and I lost my lucidity and woke up. Like the
Yeah,
last time I had that happen, I remember I had opened the door to a house that felt like my home, but wasn't my home, which is something that happens a lot. And I opened the
yeah,
door and there was this essence that was like off. And I remember I had like headphone, there was something music based, and it was like telling me something like very, I would have to look back at the dream, but like,
yeah,
and it scared me. Like I was like jump scared and woke up. And like
yeah,
that doesn't happen often, but I realized what it was, and it was an aspect of myself that I wasn't facing. And it was
yeah.
kind of combined with whatever was like I was experiencing on that realm.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, I remember, I can recall like you sharing that dream with us at some point in our conversation. So it definitely
That
was kind
was
of
the
like
last
a,
nightmare I had, like
yeah.
I don't, I even I remember I found out that somebody that I had really enjoyed their work was accused of SA. And it's alleged that, a lot of people came, not a lot, like five people came out, and it's obviously a really big problem. And I remember having like a dream where I wanted to speak to, this is like a little X-rated, just in case anybody's like a little sensitive. Is like I remember
Yeah.
like, because in the thing, like they were very like heavy BDSM, like
Mm-hmm.
beyond maybe what they should, or it was just a lot. And I remember I wanted to speak to them and ask why they would do this. Like, why would you ruin something so good for yourself? And I was like a gimp on a wheel with other gimps. Like we were all walking on our hands and knees. And like I did it on purpose because I wanted to get this person's attention. And they were walking in and out of the room and going downstairs and not even acknowledging me. So I like took the chain off and took the gag ball out of my mouth and just walked away into a different dream. So I was like, this is fucking useless. Like
Yeah,
it's just like
that was a
these
good one.
situations where like it feels like it should be malicious. It feels like it should be scary. It should be
Yeah.
like I almost just know myself within the dream enough to be able to kind of escape, I don't know, escape it or have that control.
Yeah. Well, that makes complete sense because I shared too recently that just reflecting on my dream space from this time last year and now, and my dream space is actually, there's still some really crazy dreams, but it's calmed down a lot. And I know, I'm sure a lot of that had to do with like being in the luteal phase where it's just like an onslaught, like a dump of just all kinds of random stuff. And last year it was that, but it was like really scary, really intense. And I was really dealing with things in my waking life that had me in fear and anxiety. And so, of course, I was reflected in the dream space. And then this year, it's been dreams that are a bit anxious. And usually they would be like, I guess nightmares, but it hits different and it's not as scary. And I know it's because I've been doing the work, more specifically like dream work,
Mm-hmm.
that it has evolved in my connection and perception of my dreams, and what's being communicated has evolved. And so that makes so much sense of like you doing this for years and years and years, where you don't really have nightmares often, and just the experience you have and your perspective on your dreams is usually like positive. And so that's how you're going to look at things, and that's how things are experienced. So it makes so much sense.
I also
um
want to add to that, like dreaming for me was a place for my entire life for me to feel like I had a sense of control where
mhm,
I didn't have any control in my waking life. And I feel like once you understand all the control you do have within that, whether you're astral traveling, astral projecting, or like like lucid dreaming, it doesn't feel as scary because you can just turn the page. You can just go to a different room. You can just like whatever is frightening you, you
mhm.
can just snap your fingers and it goes away. And
Yeah.
I feel like it did take a lot of practice, but I feel like you are so, like, just like you said, just 1 year, just
Mhm.
1 year,
Yeah.
you're having these complete differences in the way you function in your dream realm. And
Mhm.
like it's not hard to it may take some time, but it's not hard once you get there to kind of stay there.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I agree, and I feel that for sure. So do
It's
you have
crazy.
any last words in reference to anything that we discussed, whatever you want to share, like any last words for us here?
Well, I do want to spoil the last aspect of the movie. So we didn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway because if you were smart and you watched the movie before this, you would know everything that's going to happen. Um, but the end, the father comes back with the son. The son returns to his body, but the father doesn't make it back to his body. And his original demon that was after him takes over his body and kills the medium. And what a way to end the movie.
Yeah, that was intense.
What a way to end the movie.
Those were honestly back in the day, like that was like what I lived for. I was like, yes, there's gonna be
Yes,
another one. Like this is
yes,
great. Like,
cliffhanger. And there's
yeah,
five.
yeah,
Just so
yeah,
you guys know, there's five Insidious movies,
yeah. Maybe we'll
or maybe
we'll
four.
slowly get through them to see how it all progresses, how they go. But yeah, so anything else
Let
on
me tell
that?
you, the veil is thin and we're all feeling it.
We're
I
feeling
hope
it.
you all have a wonderful like
Breathe.
week up to Halloween. I know we're gonna, talk to you guys next Wednesday and do our chat then, but I hope this week isn't
Yeah,
too intense
Halloween
for you guys.
Eve. I'm so excited to have our
I
chat
am
Halloween Eve.
too.
And the topic is nightmares. We
Oh
might get a
yes,
little bit more specific within that topic, but yes, feel free to come through with your questions, your experiences. It feels fitting to talk about nightmares, of course, on Halloween. Yeah.
absolutely.
So we're gonna turn up that fear factor a bit and see what's going on with the dream space. And yeah, I think I'm trying to think if I have any final words here. I think what was most important in this conversation is just our outlook and perspective to our dreams. And I think that, as you mentioned, things are different for like people's dream experiences and their connection to their dreams. Like all of that it's unique for everyone. And there can be some generational connections, like what was presented in the movie. That could be a thing too. And so I think what was most important and a reminder for me, especially at this time of the year with the veil being thin, is to cleanse your bedroom space, to make it intentional, to go to bed in good vibes. So just clearing your mind, listening to like some uplifting music, meditation music, whatever feels good to drop you in a space of feeling peace and like releasing any anxiety, any fears, any worries before you go to bed. Because I know for me recently, I was telling Alexis this day that my what they call day residue is which, whenever things that happen during the day just like leak into your dream space, that's been happening a lot. And not necessarily in like a random bad way, but just it's been interesting. So I also see it as a connection of like my dreaming mind and my waking mind too. So yeah, we can all do ourselves a favor this week and cleanse our space, go to bed and good
Cleanse.
vibes, cleanse it up.
Yes. Cleanse, 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 cleanse.
Right. So I'm gonna do that tonight.
I am as
So
well.
yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank
Thank you
you.
everyone for listening. Definitely please share your thoughts, experiences, comments, everything, anything that you desire in the comment section, whether it be on YouTube or on Spotify. Follow us on Spotify, and you can also rate our show on Spotify. That would be awesome because I think that will help to support us and get us out there. And yes, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube and like the video. All right, I guess that's it for tonight, everyone.
Safe
Sweet
travels.
dreams. I was like, where do I end? I was like, I was going to